Johnny Blaze was a slow reader, so it took a long time to go through the book. But it was time he had, as the rain kept pouring and pouring and pouring. For 2 straight days, the rain came down and the thunder clapped. Johnny hoped the floods would sweep away the freaks. Then, during the middle of the second night, he heard a thumping noise. Unable to find the source of the sound, he went back to bed and continued munching on chips while reading. This time a book about mechanics so he could fix a car if he needed to. Maybe it would remind him how to hotwire one. He fell asleep reading and woke up to his heart beating fast. He smoked a cigarette to cool himself down, then went out to investigate. The rain had stopped, and it was a bright, sunny day. A great day to steal a car. Blaze noticed that a door had been smashed off its hinges. It was lying on the ground in pieces, perfect boards for blocking a window, so he picked them up. The problem was they were so heavy they slowed him down. Nevertheless, he needed them, so he headed for his most recent house, hoping he wouldn't be mobbed along the way since he couldn't run with this load. They had gotten in through the side, another window smashed. At this rate, Johnny would run out of houses sooner rather than later. After dispatching the freaks, Johnny got to work using the skills he'd learned, and he boarded up the broken window. Or rather, he tried to, but found he didn't yet have the proper skills. It didn't matter anyway because soon after he saw that a second window was broken in the kitchen, and he didn't have that many boards. So he went out searching for them. The house across the street was the nicest house yet, perhaps one he would move into, but he needed boards first. What he found was a sweater and blue jeans to change into since the vest and pants had gotten soaked in the rain. It wasn't his look, but it was warm. Johnny checked house after house in search of boards and carpentry equipment. After searching the whole day, he holed up in another house. He began to realize that there was so much stuff left behind in so many houses, he might just wander nomadically until he found the boards he wanted, then just settle down there. In bed that night, he tried to read another book, but he couldn't comprehend it, so he gave up and went to sleep. Waking up again in the middle of the night, Johnny headed out into the darkness. He was beginning to feel comfortable with maneuvering around at night. It was when he could see the freaks better than they could see him. He came upon a small food shop. They might have cigarettes, he thought, so he tried to get in. Despite there not being any cigarettes, the place still had a lot of food, so Johnny decided to grab a lot and take it with him. It massively slowed him down, but since it was nighttime, he could probably slip past the freaks in the dark, as long as nothing major happened on the way back. The sound of a helicopter grabbed Johnny's attention. Civilization! He might be saved! He searched for the source of the sound, but so did the freaks. Now with the food unloaded and safely stored in a house, Johnny could maneuver easier. He needed to find that helicopter. The sounds of the helicopter faded away. Perhaps it was a blessing. The freaks tended to, well, freak out while it was around. Johnny was going to have to figure out how to stay alive on his own. Johnny wasn't home. It wasn't even the type of home he'd want, but the freaks seemed to be getting wilder, and he needed to place the hole up until whatever had gotten into them had passed. So Johnny decided to try out his carpentry skills by barricading one of the windows. Opening the window, Johnny found that his barricade wasn't enough. A freak was trying to get in. The sound had been horrible. Something got him. Looking at the wound, it appeared to just be a scratch, but he couldn't be sure. He would have to bandage it up as soon as he could. He wasn't a doctor, though, so who knew how bad the scratch was, and what it could do to him. He needed to get to civilization fast, so he wouldn't wait around. He set out in search of fuel, or a running car. Johnny Blaze couldn't be more excited. A gas station! He would grab as much fuel as he could and find the nearest car. He went inside and got more fuel cans, filling them up to the brim. But there were no cars at the gas station, the one place he'd have expected to find abandoned cars. What kind of a town was this? And what kind of zombie apocalypse was this? Well, no time to waste. He set out in search for cars, leaving behind the gas cans so they wouldn't slow him down. Raining again. Johnny didn't want to get this far and die of pneumonia, so he holed up in a hotel room and waited for the rain to pass. Hopefully it wouldn't be as long as the last storm. He tried to read, but it was so boring. He tried to amuse himself around the motel room, but there was little to do. He then began to feel a drug relapse coming on. He hadn't taken in any in a while, but they were coming back to haunt him. Next thing he knew, he was in an office in another building. It could be because the player stopped recording and forgot to start recording until just now, but we'll ignore all that. It was a drug relapse. Deal with it. He peeked outside and saw that the rain had stopped, and it was daytime. He opened the window and crept out. Another damn alarm. He ran from the building, up the main road. This looked like the same one that led to the gas station. It was probably the route he took in his drug-induced haze the night before. He found a key. It probably went to that blue car, but first he needed to get those freaks off of his back. Having rid himself of the freaks, he put the key into the ignition and found that it had gas. He couldn't believe it. He had gone through so much to get a gas station, and here was a freaking car with freaking gas in it already. Whatever, now he had a car, and he could go anywhere. After finding his way back to the gas station, he was able to collect the gas cans he had left there. They would be good for spares. Now with a car, a nearly full tank of gas, and spare gas containers, Johnny headed for home. One of them, at least. Where it was exactly, he couldn't quite remember. And how to get there, that was nearly impossible. He had traveled on foot through the woods, across fields, over fences. It was going to be a whole new search by car. But he realized he had with him plenty of bags of potato chips, cartons full of cigarettes, several weapons, and a car nearly full of gas. He could simply blow this town. He could head out into the country and see if there were survivors out there, or go to other towns and see where civilization still existed. Regardless of where he went, he would be escaping from this hellhole. Excited by the prospect, Johnny Blaze drove faster and faster, speeding into the night, knowing not where the path would lead him. Or he'd crash into some trees and die. That somehow seems more fitting. If you enjoyed this video, please thumb us below and let your friends know. Also put in the comments anything you think the character should have done differently. Click on the next video to continue watching the story, and you can find other stories written by the author in the description below. May the Force be with you, and happy gaming, everybody!